The Asian American Pacific Islander Nurses Association of Nevada presents Healthy Mondays with AAPINA of Nevada. Start the week healthy and right with interesting conversations on living a healthy lifestyle. And now, your Healthy Mondays host, Dr. Mary Faye Axon Armstrong.
Aloha! Good evening. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Naimbaga Sardam, maayong gabi sa inyong tanan. I'm yours truly, Dr. Mary Faye Axon Armstrong, founding president of the Asian American Pacific Islander Nurses Association of Nevada and professor in nursing at Roseman University of Health Sciences College of Nursing. Here we are again on a Monday night. This is the second Monday of the month of May. And guess what? The month of May is very dear to our heart, especially with AAPINA of Nevada. And I'm going to read, to start our show, I'm going to read a part of a proclamation from the White House regarding the Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And quote unquote, this month, we celebrate our fellow Americans from the Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander communities and pay tribute to all they have done to help fulfill the promise of America for all. And together, let us recommit ourselves to build a country in which every American, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what they look like, has equal opportunity to thrive. So without further ado, I would like to introduce and welcome Ms. Elizabeth De Leon Gamboa from the Philippine Nurse Association of Nevada. Welcome to our show, Liza.
Thank you so much, Mary Faye, for having me. Magandang hapon, magandang gabi, at magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Napakasaya ko that I'm here. Thank you for the invite.
And thank you for allowing us to interview you. And I would like to hear a lot of stories from you regarding as a Filipina, and not only just a Filipina nurse, a Filipina mom, and a lot of Filipina roles that you have. So I guess we can start. You are the current president of the Philippine Nurses Association of Nevada. So please tell us about PNANV and your role in the organization.
All right. Thank you. The Philippine Nurses Association of Nevada was established in 1992 when we had these trailblazer nurses that wanted to come together to have an impact in the nursing world here in our state and to make a difference. So outside of the four walls of their hospital, they started meeting, and then they started talking about how they can implement changes, in our healthcare system. So that's how the Philippine Nurses Association came about. And now, fast forward, it's been 30 years. As a current president, I had a very big shoes to fill, I would say. We have a lot of projects that are ongoing right now, and definitely leading a whole team of vibrant and dedicated board of directors. As a president, it's never easy, but then when you have all your support from the board of directors and the members, it makes it a lot achievable, when you have all these goals together.
How has your heritage shaped the person you are today?
Wow. My heritage, the Philippines has been a colony of a few countries, right? We were a colony of Spain, then we had the Japanese invasion, then after that, the US. So it's a mixture of all those different cultures that makes me who I am right now, plus being a Filipina, right? The values that I would say that I attribute to my heritage are those of the love for family. Okay, very close-knit family. We have extended ones that live in our homes, mga lolas, titas. And, that really emphasized the respect for our elders, making sure that we value their opinion. We value what they can teach us, because the world out there is not as cool as we know it to be, right? We have a lot of pitfalls, a lot of dangers. But when we listen to our elders, they will never stray us wrong. They always try to direct our paths. So that's one thing that I really value as a Filipina. And then the other thing too is being humble. You don't have to brag about all your accomplishments. Your actions and the results or the fruits of your labor would speak for themselves. Just do it quietly, but they'll just see the fruits of what you have done. And I think for me, those are the two main things.
Wow. And it's so true. I'm glad you mentioned about the multiculture within the Filipina. As a Filipina, we are not really like pure Filipino. We're a combination of all the different cultures that actually it has to do when we were occupied by the Spaniards, right? And a lot of us are, like for me, my mom's side is Spanish side. And Castilla, we call it Castilla in Tagalog, in the Philippines. And then my father's side has some Chinese. So if you look at my relatives, they look Chinese. And then on the other side of my relatives, they look Castilla, they look Spanish. They're like light skin, right? So I think for the Filipinos, we always, our traditions are like a collaboration and a combination of all of these different cultures. How about traditions in your family? Does your family have any traditions that are especially important to you?
Oh, yes, definitely. Being raised in a Catholic family, I always looked forward to the Simbang Gabi,
Yes.
in anticipation of Christmas. So that's 9 days, waking up early morning at 4 a.m., to go to church because, after the 9 days, whatever you ask God, you will get. Right. So everybody was pushing to go to church. And of course, for me as a young girl at that time, I look forward to the breakfast, all the suman, the bibingka after, because I
Puto
wanted my
bongbong.
treats. Yes, the puto bongbong. So my intention was more towards the end of the mass, not
The food.
necessarily going to church as a little girl. Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other one is the other side of the spectrum, which is yung Holy Week, in preparation for Christ's passion and then his death on the cross and then yung kanyang resurrection. So we have that, the pabasa, the 7 churches. Those were really important because that's when our families got together and we really tried to look at all the blessings that we have. And then that's the time that we make amends if there are any broken relationships. And then we celebrate during Easter.
I get really excited when you mention about Simbang Gabi.
Yeah.
I remember our
the
group.
chocolate.
Yeah, the hot chocolate and
Yeah.
the hot tea, yung tsaa. At
Yes.
saka yung my group of friends in high school, we always get asked to sing in the Simbang Gabi. So our church in Binangonan has like a veranda like inside the church, so we sing up there. And so just like you said, the excitement and the real goal is to be after the mass, we will be eating our bibingka, our puto bongbong.
That's
right?
the best. Yeah.
That's the best. And then
Yeah.
kalamay, the kalamay bibingka.
Uh-huh.
So lots of memories.
Yeah.
Good memories.
Actually, when you mentioned, having your church with that veranda, way up there, my dad was a choir director in church. So what they would sing would be the Latin songs, cantores, that's yeah. So I listened to all those songs. I think I memorized them, not knowing what they meant, because I heard them day after day, year after
over
year.
and over.
Yeah. But, it gives me the thrill of just listening to them like, oh, I'm at the Vatican because I hear Latin,
You're just like in Italy or Rome or maybe, in a foreign country because the Castilla, the songs. Okay, well, here is a more personal question for you.
Oh.
What are some interesting hobbies or talents that most people may not know about you?
Wow. Hobby. Well, I like to do a lot of different things. I like to sing, but I'm not in public really, but among my friends where I can really be myself and maybe hit a few notes here and there or miss some, and they're okay to, they'll understand if I did. So I love to sing, and then I love to dance too. Um, and then what else? But the most important that many people might not know, I love acting, because when I was in high school, I did a lot of declamations, and then in college, we I was part of the nursing artist corps. We established that group in college.
Wow. Now, everybody who knows Liza, you know more about her now. And I haven't met any Filipinos who doesn't like singing and dancing. I guess it's embedded in our culture, in our
Yep.
upbringing, that you're able to sing, even though you're not the best singer, but you love to sing. I guess it has
Hmm.
to do with church too, right?
Yep.
And the dancing. Okay, here. Which historical figure do you admire the most and why?
Well, number one, none other than our national hero, JP Rizal. You know,
Oh,
he may not have fought in the front lines, but with the use of his pen and his brains, he was able to influence a lot of people to really focus and on their goals, as well as their love. It's like evoking this special love for the country, and using his pen, he did that so well. And like for me, when I look at myself, I may not be out there giving the care anymore because I work for the insurance side now
mhm.
in quality, but I can still influence my co-nurses, my colleagues, to really be out there and give their best to achieve positive outcomes for the patients. So that's my comparison. So I really love how he has influenced a lot of people, even up to now. His books, when you read his books, you just
The
can't put them
Nole
down.
Metangere, right?
Yep.
He's
And
a silent
LKB.
influencer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he's silent. Wow. Okay. So, what does the AANHPI Heritage Month mean to you?
I'm so glad, and I feel really blessed that this time that we get our time of day, right? Because now is the time that we get recognized for what we do and what we contribute to this country. Um, it's overwhelming because the support that we're getting now, despite what happened the last 2 years when we had that anti-Asian violence going on, but now we get the support of our fellow men, especially to in the government, that they're looking at us as valuable contributors to the history in the making of this country. So it means so much to me because this is our chance to promote diversity, and then equality, and of course inclusion. This is so important to all of us, especially to me, and for the generations to come. When I see my boys, they're going to have their own families, so I would want my grandkids and then the ages to come to be in the same footing as everyone else, despite their color or despite where they came from.
Yes, and I think I remember when I went, and I like talking stories about what I experienced when I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I think I was only in my 30s, and I was having my lunch in the staff lounge, and she was a African American girl, and very innocently she said, "Mary Faye, you're not white, you're not black. What are you?" But she said it so innocently, and I guess if you are confident about yourself and who you are, you take it as she's truly curious about who I am because I'm brown skin, and it's probably her first time to see a Filipino, a brown race, right? So I just happily told her that I'm an American. But then again, I followed it up like, oh, I'm from the Philippines. Have you been to the Philippines? And then I showed her the map. And I think what we need to do, what we need to do at this point is to really increase awareness and introduce ourselves and who we are,
Mhm.
because they don't really know. They didn't mean to be rude, or they don't mean to question who we are. It's just that they're wondering who we really are. And I think at this point, fast forward, now they're acknowledging us. Now they're trying to get to know who are the Asian Americans. or the
Mhm.
Pacific Islanders. And just recently, they added the Native Hawaiians. And one of my initial dissertation for my doctoral degree is um, increasing awareness about that the Asian Americans are different from the Pacific Islanders and how we are lump sum into one. And then now the Native Hawaiians are being recognized also as a different culture.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's a big progress for the world, not only for the United States but the whole world. Now understanding that the Asian Americans are have differences. There are some similarities, of course, but they are
Mhm.
quite different from the culture of Pacific Islander and then the Native Hawaiians, and even within the Asian American culture, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
the
definitely.
Filipinos, and maybe you can share with our listeners out there, those who are not Filipinos and are curious about our program, maybe you can share with them some differences within the Asian Americans. It's not included in our questions.
Okay, the difference is, of course, like for example, for us Filipinos, right? Again, we talked about it earlier. We have different influences because we were a colony of several countries. So we've assimilated some form of traditions or traits from these occupying countries like the Americans, the Castilla, and the Japanese. We love to eat. We're very they think we're very meek and subservient, but then we can also put our foot forward when we need to. I think we have a lot of leadership potential for Filipinos. Then you have also the other countries, like for example, the Japanese or the Chinese. We all have different types of traditions, right?
Mhm.
Their religion, their food. Although again, there's some similarities with food. Let's say, for example, the dumplings. We also have our own form of dumplings, right? The noodles. We all have different types of noodles, but they're all noodles,
Yes.
right?
The Manila noodles, the Singapore noodles.
Yes, yes, and then our own pancit, right?
Correct.
So yeah, and what else? I'm trying to think.
Yeah. Every
Um,
time we talk about Filipinos and other Asian, we end up talking about the food
oh
because
yeah, that's
that's
the
really
common
the core
denominator.
of the culture.
That's
Yes.
the best thing. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Oh, and then the of course we have our own different traditional uh wear,
Costumes.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, our costumes. Let's say, for example, what you're wearing right now, a bolero, and then I'm
Mhm.
wearing barong. And then for the others, they have their kimono, right? For the
Mhm.
Japanese kimono. And then the Koreans also have some sort of a kimono. It's made out of silk. It's made out of pinya. So that's a
Mhm.
main difference. So they can't just really clump us all in one. Oh, they're all Asians or
Mhm.
all Asian Americans. We are all different in each aspect, but we do have similarities, as what you said. And even in the Philippines itself, because we're 7,100 islands, you have people up north with different traditions. We have people from the south that also have different traditions. And then
And
the
even the
dialects are
languages.
different. Yeah, the
Yeah.
dialects. You know, I'm Kapampangan because I'm in the middle, in the central region. And then we have people down in the south that speak Spanish because, or Chabacano. And then you have those up north speaking Ilocano. So we're all Filipinos here in Nevada when we talk, but then we still talk different dialects. You know, sometimes
Yes.
there's that barrier
Yes.
among
Yes.
ourselves. Yeah.
And even within the even those who are not Asian Americans, like the Mexican, when they start talking in Mexican and go like, wow, I understand what he's saying. Like the sombrero
Mm-hmm.
is also the same thing it means in our language, which is hat.
Hat.
And
Yeah.
a lot of like cubiertos, right? All
They
the
were a
others.
colony of Spain too.
Correct.
So
Yes. Yes.
that's why we are kind of interrelated that way.
Yes. Wow. I think 30 minutes, half an hour is not enough to really talk about the Asian Americans and Pacific Islander population and Native Hawaiians too. I think what I wanted to towards the end, like, time flies when we're having fun. But among the prevalent chronic diseases in the Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islander population, with your occupation right now, you mentioned that you work for insurance company, right? The medical insurance company. What do you see are the first three that you often see in your clinical practice as far as chronic diseases among the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander population?
Okay. Main thing that I have seen so far among Filipinos, okay, let me focus on the Filipinos. It's more of the hypertension, and then the heart disease, as well as diabetes. I don't know if that's something associated with our food intake, because we like maalat, salty foods, right? And then fatty foods, mga lechon and all the
We talk about it in our previous episode. You
yeah,
can't
all
get out from
the
it.
killing me softly foods, right?
I like that. Killing me softly food. Maalat, matamis, maanghang.
Yep. So that's the Filipino, side of the chronic diseases. Although they say, actually, in the journals, in HSS and the OMN, I've seen that there's a lot of prevalence of COPD, and then because of the smoking, and then there's still that tuberculosis that is afflicting them, and then also HIV and hepatitis B. I'm not sure with the hepatitis B if there's that resistance to the vaccinations. So that's a supposition. It's not like affirmative that that's the reason behind it. But I just wanted to emphasize what I have seen as disparities and the lack of follow-up or screening are the colorectal screening, and then the breast cancer screening, as well as the cervical and vaginal screening. That we see there's non-compliance from the Asian American and Native Hawaiian Islander population. And I'm not really sure if it's associated anything, because we're very meek, and because those are in the private areas, right, of our body, and for us, our human nature as Asians. Now, again, of course, this is my own perspective and my opinion of it. Parang nakakahiya. You don't want your private parts being exposed, etc. You don't want anybody touching you up here, right? So is that a possible correlation to the non-compliance to these testings? So maybe that's a question we need to ask and really go for educating our people.
Yes, and I think that it is logical to think that it also has to do with the cost. I know that moving from Hawaii to here, that Hawaii is one of the, I think it's the only state that covers for well visits, wellness. So the insurance companies there are required by the state of Hawaii to provide routine checks. When you mentioned about cervical cancer screening, the pap smears, even the breast
mammogram.
Examination, mammogram, they are all free, and it is required by the state of Hawaii to be covered. And wouldn't it be nice if all the states will provide that? Because it is costly. Definitely. It adds up, right? So that maybe one of the barrier is the cost.
That's
and access due to the cost, because it's already expensive to have your own single plan, like insurance plan, right? And then, but then again, that is more of like a financial situation and more like economy, like health.
Yeah. Well, there's different aspects, definitely, that we need to look at. All these social determinants of health. That, I guess, that's another topic, you know, that can be explored.
I have to bring you back for that, for another topic.
Yeah, because like with extended families, maybe, you know, I'm working, but then my mom is not working, or he's semi-retired or whatnot. How do I cover her? to get all those preventive screenings,
Mhm.
so that may be a challenge for them.
Yeah, so a lot of things to really discuss and talk about. I mean, as nurses, we know that we learn about primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. And I think that a lot of organizations are now realizing that it really saves a lot of money if we provide the primary prevention. And
Mhm.
as we're mentioning about the screening, the health screening, and the only way that we can really find out the true reason why a lot of Asians are not are not taking the time to do screening, because a lot of times they get find out to have the cancer when it's already
Too
progressing,
late. Mhm.
when there's already signs and symptoms that is showing. So how can we have our Asian American community, our Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islander community to really take good care of themselves? And one of the way they can take good care of themselves is to do health screening,
Mhm.
and also routine checkups, right? So then it can be prevented and it can be addressed right away and treated.
Definitely.
Wow, really, time flies when we're having fun. You know that we're already talking about, yeah, I was looking at the
Yeah, well,
time.
we can work together definitely and see how we
Yes.
can do outreaches to all these populations from the AAPINAH
NHPI.
PI. Okay, because there was an additional letter. I have to catch myself there.
I really enjoyed talking to you, Liza. We can go on and on and on, but I wanted to ask you, as always, I ask our guests any words of wisdom to our listeners out there before we end our program.
I've always lived on this Bible quote, Hebrews 11:1. To have faith is to be certain of things we hope for, to be certain of the things that we cannot see. And nothing is impossible, okay? We may have adversities, we may have challenges, but when we have that faith in God, we take it one day at a time in stride, and we can make a difference.
This past Monday and tonight, we are going to showcase all of the AANHPI issues and thoughts from our leaders out there. So stay tuned for that. So in the meantime, remember, every Monday is a healthy Monday. Aloha.
The Asian American Pacific Islander Nurses Association of Nevada has just brought you Healthy Mondays with AAPINA of Nevada.